The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Cracking the Client Data Problem webinar. We'll just wait a couple of minutes, make sure everyone's logged in, and then we'll get started. Eric, will we?
Yeah, just a couple more people joining in here.
We do have a lot to get through though, so we'll not hang around too often. We'll respect the people that turned up on time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Even myself, I almost couldn't make it on time.
Yeah. So we know what the webinar is called. Let's do a little introduction to ourselves, shall we? So I'm Sean Smith. I work at AutoEntry and Sage. I'm the accounting evangelist in that team. Just like a brief history. So I was an accountant previously, but I wasn't very good, and I much more preferred the sort of technology side of things. I'm a bit geeky, and so I ended up moving across to the software side of things, and I've been working with accounting firms to implement different software packages for the last sort of 10 years. So I've worn a few different hats. I've worked for Xero, I've worked for Free Agent, I've worked for Sage, and I also worked for a company called Clarity. So that's a quick history of me. But Eric, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, working at SmartVault right now. Spent the last half decade working with accounting firms mostly around the world. Same thing, been in tech for quite a bit before, mostly in security type of more almost physical, access control, security cameras, kind of the more physical type of security tech, and then more data from there. And then now, like I said, spend most of the time before working with accounting firms around the world, kind of identifying certain things in their stack, anything that's missing, anything that's just not quite right. And with a security background, that kind of helps me kind of focus on, just kind of naturally flows into the document management side. So really helping firms streamline, get things more secured, tighten lockdown, and make things easier for them.
Awesome. Right, well, we crack on to the, actually, before we crack on to the agenda, or while we skip over to the agenda slide, just a quick reminder for all you guys logged in, you'll be able to download the handouts or the slides from this presentation at the end as well. So if you miss anything, or if you've got any questions and you want to refer back to them, you'll be able to get a copy of those. Right, so we crack on. So what we're going to cover today then, so we're looking to cover off sort of why 24/7 fast data is important. We'll spend a bit of time, we'll look at like the life cycle of a client and all the kind of touch points you have in terms of like that data flow. We're going to look at creating client first data flows, to coin that phrase. Top sources of client data, so like where we can kind of really enable that with technology, and then we'll sort of briefly at the end kind of touch on like next steps. So like if you want to be using products to kind of solve or make this area of your practice easier, what kind of steps can you take to achieve that? And we've got 30 minutes, so we'll need to crack on. So that first agenda point then, if we look at that 24/7 sort of fast data, so that might seem like a bit of a pipe dream, right? But I think it is possible to do it. The kind of tough areas, right? So like chasing client data has always been a tough one, certainly from my memory. It was like a sort of piece of the puzzle that is always been difficult to solve, but it can be sort of completed, definitely. So it's how do we embed new habits or behaviors, that kind of idea, and how could we utilize technology or improve the awareness or educate our clients that there is a better way than the bag and box or the supermarket bag of receipts at the end of the year. sort of in terms of like why, I suppose we're looking at like the security of document storage and the fact that you never have to kind of worry about it again. You know, using technology, and you'll probably be able to talk to this, Eric. It's once it's sort of entered into the system, it's always there. It's backed up, which you'll be able to shed a bit more light on, and you can kind of access it from anywhere, right? So your phone, your iPad, laptop, you know, whatever it kind of is.
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
a really important aspect, isn't it, Eric?
Yeah, and me being, I guess something more recent news, right? Me being Taiwanese, and then also live in Houston, Texas. So disaster recovery, right? This is something that's very important. So 24/7 fast data, a lot of times it means you're stored in the cloud. Cloud-based storage, the huge benefit is managing these servers internally, right? The cost of having the security and upkeep, and most importantly, during a natural disaster. And right in Taiwan, we have this big earthquake, but not everywhere will lose power. Most places didn't lose internet. In the same time in Houston, I think people that are familiar might know we can get some pretty massive hurricanes here. So in 2018, we had that big one, Harvey, that flooded half the city. A lot of our clients didn't really have to worry because for the staff that's already working remote or they're working at home, they have power, they can log in, they can do things they need to do. But most importantly, all this piles of paper, all these file cabinets they had in these different rooms, they're no longer there. They're being shredded already, or they're not, they don't, it doesn't matter because the important stuff is already available in the cloud securely. So yeah, a big part of really security, I think people forget, is the disaster recovery part.
Yeah, and that's wild to me. Like based in the UK here, we don't have any kind of like really extreme weather like that, right? But you know, in my old firm, we had like a basement with all those filing cabinets that you're talking about there, with all the paper files in it. They'd just be, you know, flooded and gone, which is just wild to me to think about that. So yeah, really good point. It's also the back and forth, right? So like if you're wanting to do any kind of like value add stuff, you know, like management reports or cash flow statements, anything like that, the transferring of that information back and forth, right? So of course, the obvious bit is clients getting data to you, but you're able to then get data back out to them. Like it's a two-way street, right? So you can sort of load these packs or board packs or whatever it is that you're creating for your clients. You can send them both ways, and you got really cool things like e-signing and stuff like that available through these products. And just like dashboards and reporting, right? So fewer kind of piles of paper, which is kind of what you talked about. So you're able to get insights from once all the data is in a kind of system. That system is obviously then able to kind of read that data, organize it, and give you some kind of like insight as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, so let's talk about customer life cycle and the touch points, right? This is just a little cheat sheet that we kind of created. It's got the client touch points in there. And so we're looking at all the kind of data points where information would go back and forth, really. So obviously, when you first initially make contact with that client, so we've got the sort of online quotations, proposals, engagement letters. When you're doing your AML checks, you know, you need like a copy of the passport, council tax bills, identification, you know, all these kind of things. And you need them all kind of securely and safely transferred between practice and customers. That's a big one. Sharing, then onwardly sharing that information to, you know, governing bodies. So here in the UK, it's HMRC and Companies House that you have to share these bits of information with. I imagine you've got similar where you are, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's kind of like at the beginning of the relationship, I suppose. It needs to be refreshed every couple of years, of course, but then there's sort of business as usual stuff, which is what I kind of touched on earlier. So like sending of the management reports back and forth, or accounts, or whatever it is for signing, you know, that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, and I do want to add, with maybe not so much with tax firms, but with accounting, bookkeeping firms, as you see on the slide, there's so many kind of key points of what you have to do on your day-to-day. And a lot of times you're really, I don't want to say at the mercy of, but really, you have to do what HMRC or over here in the States, the IRS, they tell you exactly what needs to be done, and things change every year, right? You have to follow all the new rules, new laws. Over here in the States, different states have different things you have to do. So you're in charge of a lot of that, and you need to take responsibility for so much of it. But then when on the flip side, a lot of bookkeepers, what happens is kind of the day-to-day workflow is they're used to logging into the client's individual systems. I'm doing a bookkeeping client, that's this type of company, this other client, I'm doing other things that, they give me to log in into their bank account, stuff like that. But what happens is, sure, when you're just starting out, a handful of clients, yeah, I can do that, make it easy for the clients. But then when we're looking at growing and scaling, it's the same exact thing where you have to do so much on your end and keep up with all the new laws, but you're not standardizing what's happening for the client. And I think a big part of being able to scale is controlling that, controlling what the client does. And that also means having your own solutions for that, right? You're telling the clients, hey, I'm the professional. I'm the one that, that's letting you know what needs to be done, doing this for you. I have a lot of things I have to follow. So in the same time, having my own solutions in the right stack, I'm controlling all that. And this helps me have better audit purposes, right? I can track things that's going on. It's internal staff scalability as I bring on more staff. Not everyone's doing their own thing differently. Everyone's using the same system, doing the same thing. So less mistakes, easier to find things. Digital audit trail versus physical audit trail, right? With something like that.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, I think it's very, very important that a lot of growing bookkeeping firms should really start to take a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that standardization piece is a big one for me, because it kind of brings that SLA, that minimum kind of service level, to like a sort of on par across the team, right? So that it doesn't matter which team members looking after your client, that there's this basic level of service that they're definitely going to receive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, shall we move on to the client first data flows, to coin that phrase?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of to tie in with what I said earlier about, creating something standardized. Also, what's very important is to kind of create these habits for the clients too. And a lot of times from here, some of these clients you might have that may be a little difficult to work with, though. What was that phrase that people say? It's the 10% of your clients that creates 90% of your problem.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of the same exact thing, but for those people, that's just going to be what it is. But you have to focus on the 90% of your clients that is going to grow with, that's going to follow what you do. And a lot of times you might not know in the beginning, some firms are afraid to move on, add on to new systems, and they're afraid kind of, because my clients immediately don't like to do this, don't like to do that. Well, habits are built, right? Just like for you and your staff, habits are built for your clients. And so same thing internally in the clients, set clear goals, right? These are certain things we need to get done for you this year, this quarter. On the actual service side, at the same time, creating a queue for the new habits. And that is something your staff will really come in. So something like AutoEntry, you're able to get the clients to think about, hey, I need to go ahead and grab certain things, or different type of systems that gets them immediately grab a source document, or receipts, invoices, stuff like that. These queue for new habits. Okay, whenever I got something like this, don't lump it in an email. Don't just put it into a bag somewhere and then dump it on Sean's desk or something when I see him. It's 2024 now, right? We don't need to do all of that.
Throw it in the glove box when they're driving around, that kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah, and then no, that's a little better, I think. I think some folks, especially folks that's in contracting, construction, and whatnot, they go and buy supplies, just stuff them in their little wallet, right? Crumple it all up. So creating these queues for them. Okay, open up this app, take a picture, send it directly to Sean. Don't have to worry too much about it afterwards. Same thing, and more with a document management system with more long-term side, they're able to, okay, when I need to do certain things, when I need to actually look at prior month statements, quarter statements, whatnot, I already know I need to log into a specific portal and grab those. And those are the same exact things that, with what I said about disaster recovery and whatnot, it's the same thing for the clients. they're no longer storing all these things themselves or keeping it somewhere in an email, a shoebox somewhere. It's all stored with my firm. Added value, like you kind of hinted on earlier. Now I'm providing my clients a secured and easy way to store things. And these type of things are just going to build, right? The British General Practice, that really important article there. We won't go through it too much on that, but you know, you can definitely look at it. I think a lot of people might be familiar with it. Actually, it's really popular.
It just kind of, I think it just kind of outlines the fact that it takes that 10 weeks to create a habit, which is really interesting for me, because you know I did find it difficult to get clients to get into the habit of taking pictures of receipts and getting them to kind of do that consistently. And I always felt like it was me, like I wasn't good at showing them or teaching them the product or whatever. But it turns out creating a habit's quite difficult, you know. So it's just about that consistency, I think, and like you're saying, the clear goal and the cue to make sure that it's nice and easy for them to maintain that consistency.
And really the last thing on this slide, I really want to focus on what you said is people just, especially in the accounting space, I think are starting to realize being the service provider, being the professional that people go to, a lot of folks don't, you know, they don't question their lawyer, they don't question their doctor. Hey, they tell you I got to do this, I'm going to do it. Oh, but why is it my bookkeeper? They tell me to do this, I'm going to say no, I don't want to do it. You know, you think about yourself when you onboard a new software. It takes you a few weeks for you to, you know, get it implemented right away. Cloud-based system, quick and easy. But, you know, getting your staff trained up. Everyone has different levels of, you know, learning things and capacity. It takes a few weeks for your team to get used to it. Same thing for your clients. You know, it's going to take some time. So just stick with it. You know, you're the professional. You tell them what to do. You're here for what's best for them, and they know that. They should, I hope. Yeah. So just give them time and stick with it.
Yeah. Now, should we try and cover off incentivizing this, right? So we kind of covered like why it's important and how to kind of set it up, but I found that just saying, oh, can you take pictures of your receipts or whatever, because it's good for me, wasn't enough of an incentive for the clients to kind of like take that on board and do it. So we thought we'd kind of jot down here some kind of like ways, I suppose, or things to talk about to incentivize your clients to kind of get on board with using tools like this, and why it's valuable to them, because ultimately if it's not valuable to them, it's not going to be like a huge priority, right? And so it's simple things like the reporting that you're able to do off the back of real-time information. So for me, the conversation was always around, you know, help me to help you, right? To Jerry Maguire, it was, you know, I can do like detailed P&L reports monthly, or I can give you a sort of up-to-date budget. You know, I can give you cash flow statements. We can see which clients have paid you and which haven't. You know, what are your debtor days looking like and things like that. And it can all be like real-time confident decision making, as it kind of says on the slide. And once I was able to kind of dangle that carrot, I suppose, in front of the clients, or let them see, you know, their friends or their peers or other clients receiving that kind of like really useful and up-to-date information, they would maybe come to me and say, like, oh, you know, Steve got this really cool report from you. Like, I want the same kind of thing. And that would be me. I'd be like, perfect. Yes, I can do that for you, but I need the information sooner. I need it like in real time, because there's a bit of lead time for me to turn that around and process it. So the sooner you're capturing those receipts and getting them over to me, the more value, the more insight I can give you around your business and around the numbers. So that was the main kind of incentive for me, was kind of showing them what we could do with the data when we had it, and that quite often helped with the incentivizing them to get on board with getting that information over to me sooner.
When in doubt, this is how you can save more, make more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So if we look, so we're talking about all this data, right, going back and forth between client and practice. So we just thought we'd maybe kind of delve on like a couple of like sources of this data. So really just like run through this slide quickly. So we're looking at, you know, bank statements, right? So there used to be the paper bank statement. Now you've got open banking here in the UK. It essentially allows you to connect your bank directly to your bookkeeping software, so your general ledger. So it's just feeding through that information like every day, or even if it refreshes sooner than that, it's basically real time these days, which is brilliant. You've got apps like Cresco, which are kind of acting in the kind of payment space. That's a really cool app at the moment, getting a lot of press. Mileage is a big one. So you've got, basically there's an app for everything, is what we're kind of alluding to here, aren't we? So you've got that trip log, mile IQ, so there's that back and forth of information there. If we were, you know, going back to that kind of the touch points of the clients right at that early stage, you've got onboarding of the clients. So we've got a product that works in that space called Go Proposal. That is your AML and things like that as well. And I guess kind of underpinning or overarching, depends what language you like to use. You've got your practice management kind of space, right? So your big kind of general ledgers. You've got independent practice management tools, but your big general ledger companies, Sage and Xero and the like, they have practice management tools in that space as well. So that's kind of different like sources of information. But if we kind of delve into, so we're talking about this client first kind of data flow. How can SmartVault kind of help in this space, Eric?
Yeah, that's a good question. So SmartVault, right, just like what it says, the name of the system is a SmartVault. Won't take too much time on this part, but it's, you know, it's a cloud-based document management system with a built-in portal and also long-term storage. What it allows your clients to do, it's basically, it has a system that allows your clients to basically go have 24/7 access to the reportings. Like I said earlier, they can always be able to download, you know, a copy of specific documents they need, anywhere from monthly statements for bookkeeping, payroll items, and, you know, tax returns. You know, something like that could be stored on there for the clients, easy to have access. And so something, you know, on the front end, you have AutoEntry that's going to be able to get the clients to think about, hey, I got, you know, these receipts, these invoices, let me go snap these things. Cool. But then on the client side, and that's something that they're going to think about. Hey, there's a login button on my accounting firm's website, or my accountant has a little, you know, login link on the email signature. Whenever I think about any type of long-term documentation I need to have access to, or a bigger document, you know, like you can send requests with the system. When you can send requests with them for, you know, when you're onboarding a client, I can give them a checklist of, you know, I need your bank statement, I need certain type of ID, certain things for AML, right, stuff like that. So I have a specific system I log into to always give them these documents, and in the same time, grab a copy whenever I need to. But for the firm internally, it's a full-blown document management system. It's quite literally a cloud server for documents. So no longer having these file cabinets, no longer even worrying about maintaining a server. I have this system that my staff log in with their credentials, then their permissions are preset, and they're able to see the clients in their folders that is designated ones that they're supposed to see. And then they can work on documents directly within the cloud system as if it's on the computer. We have a desktop app built for that. So you have the benefits of a cloud security. So nothing stored on their local computers here, but also they can work on documents right away without having to download them from a cloud system and upload back into there. So the SmartVault really comes on the back end, tidy things up for security and streamlining your staff's workflow and your client's own benefit.
Yeah, nice. That checklist piece really rung true with me when you described it before. This idea of like, say you were onboarding like a limited company client, you were saying you can have these checklists in SmartVault, right, where you send that out and it asks the client for A, B, you know, their past accounts, their clearance letter, their ID, whatever it is. It's like a checklist, and they complete it as they go. And the accountant is notified, right, when they complete each step. Yeah, I just thought that was absolutely brilliant. such
the automation on that,
great visibility.
The automation on that actually ties into a specific folder template too. So you have it tied to a certain year, certain months accounting work. It'll pull those directly into the folder for you.
Yeah, nice. So let me talk a little bit about AutoEntry in terms of how we can help to solve in this space. And so this is just kind of capturing information right at the source and in real time. So we kind of start at the left and we move away across to the right. So we've got the document, so whether that's a till receipt, whether it's a emailed invoice, whatever it is, any kind of bill or invoice, you kind of get that document. And when it arrives, it's going to be paper-based, it's going to be in an email, whatever it is, and you're able to capture that. So, you know, you can forward emails into AutoEntry, you can take pictures on your phone, you can scan it in, and then like scan in like multi-page documents, and that'll feed across into your system. And you can see at the kind of far right here, there's like a multitude of systems that will feed into. So all the kind of big players in the market, Sage, QBO, Zero, Free Agent. It's like a list of all the places I used to work. Even Excel, right? So it just really streamlines that process and takes away the difficulty from it, which I think is that's kind of the big value piece there. It's in their pocket. Everyone's on their phone all the time nowadays, aren't they? So it's really easy to just, look, you're on your phone anyway, you're probably taking a selfie with your mate, so why don't you just, you know, take a picture of that receipt.
And I have my own apps. Whenever I'm doing anything, I have a specific app for it. I think about the app before what the action really is. So AutoEntry, I just love having that same thing. Just know, hey, open it up, have a picture.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it extracts the data as well, right? So it's got like AI built in, so it's like pretty smart. It's got machine learning, things like that, so it can recognize documents. And also you can set up like rules and things. So if we take the construction example that you mentioned earlier, Eric, you know, if you're always buying from Screwfix, you can put in a rule there, and it will just identify any kind of Screwfix receipts and post them. Sort of automatically reconcile them in your general ledger. So it's just really streamlining that workflow. Right, so that's covering the two projects. As I kind of promised at the beginning, what can you do as a practice if you want to start implementing these kind of tools, right? So we've kind of like called out some bits here. So it's like assign an owner. That's a big one for me. I've run a multitude of projects over the years, and you know, a good amount of them failed, and I've learned from that. And one of the big ones was firms not sort of giving that kind of ownership to someone to sort of say, you've got the power and you've got the time away from the day job to kind of make sure that this implementation of a new product or, you know, software works and is being delivered correctly. I think that's a really, really big one. Sort of segmenting your client base. So like you're going to have a long list of clients, right? And they're all going to be completely different. Some of them will be tech savvy. Some of them will be, you know, quite happy to try something new, and others won't be. So it's like, how do we organize them into sort of like low hanging fruit, like clients that are going to get on board and maybe work with you to kind of iron out that onboarding process, and then sort of work your way up through the client base, bucket by bucket, until they're all kind of onto the system. Creating clear milestones. So like for me, there was kind of like 5 kind of main pillars, and I wrote them down earlier. Like for me, when I was running projects, it was vision. So what you're trying to achieve, because if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, you're never going to get there. Making sure that we had the skills in place, making sure that there was an incentive. So we've already talked about that for the clients. Making sure you got the resource. So that's like training materials, things like that. And then an action plan was the kind of 5 steps that I always took my firms through when they were trying to implement a software. So hopefully that can help. The last bit is like measurable KPIs. I got told once by a management consultant, and it's always kind of sticks with me. He was working with a firm, and they wrote down their KPI. They want 15% recoverability on their jobs. And he said, oh, what's your recoverability now? And they were like, oh, we don't know. So then they looked into it and they pulled out a report, and it was already at 17%. So just being aware of your KPIs, right, is really important before you kind of set them as well. So just like that whole knowledge piece around what you're trying to achieve, you kind of got to know where you are before you can kind of set your goal, right? So hopefully that can kind of help in terms of like where to start with your implementing or kind of things, mistakes that I've certainly made along the way that you don't have to. And I guess just wrapping, so, you know, hopefully this has been useful. I know we kind of blasted through it, but as I said, you'll get a copy of the slides at the end. Anyway, you can download them and go through them again. And of course, we've got Q&A and all these kind of things. So if you've got any questions, do let us know. But I guess before we kind of wrap up, just if you want to try AutoEntry, I'll talk to AutoEntry, Eric, and you can talk to SmartVault. Sure. You can sign up whenever you want, just from the website. And when you do, you get 25 credits for free. So that's essentially 25 documents you'd be able to scan and get read and pushed through into your bookkeeping solution of choice. So you might as well, if you've got a small client, you know they're only doing 1 invoice a month, that's 12 documents. You could do a year-end job and see how it goes.
Yeah, and with SmartVault, so the document management system, we understand, you know, it's a little bit something you have to implement. So schedule a demo, take a look at the system with me. One of my colleagues will show you exactly kind of how the system works internally, what you would see, what the client sees, right? Client experience are very important. And then if everything looks good, it's a good fit, you attend this, because you've attended this, you get 20% off on your subscription.
Brilliant. Right, well, in the interest of time then, thank you very much everyone that attended today. I hope it's been useful. And I'll just say goodbye from myself and goodbye from Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Sean. Thanks. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.